Hello everyone and welcome back to Covetous Imp Gaming. Today I want to talk about the future of Dungeons & Dragons and my plan for the future of Dungeons & Dragons. Please do the internet robots a favor and like this video, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you're alerted to our future content. Leave us a comment below about videos you would like to see in the future, and check us out on Facebook and Patreon. Those links are down below. So the first thing I want to talk about is power creep, and power creep is a great marketing tool to get people to buy books, introducing new subclasses, new backgrounds, new playable races, new monsters that are slightly stronger than what's already been released is a great way to get people to purchase new books. And from having things like Haunted One and Curse of Strahd, or some of the subclasses that were released in the Critical Role books that were released by Wizards of the Coast were better than just what was already available. Then you have things like Xanathars and Tashas that were player focused and just focused on new subclasses that were available that were far superior than the ones that were previously released. This gets your players into the mindset of, I want to be something that's more powerful, which is ultimately what your players should be feeling anyway. At the same time, releasing a new campaign book, you would have to balance it around what's available now versus what was available in 2015 when the Player's Handbook first came out. And I think you would see that if you ran a new campaign and said, I only want my players to pick stuff out of the Player's Handbook, I think you would have a much more difficult campaign than if you said, you guys can play stuff out of Tasha's, but I'm going to run Tyranny of Dragons. I feel like Tyranny of Dragons would be a walk in the park for your players because it was based on stuff that was available in the Player's Handbook. This means that whatever's released in the Player's Handbook that comes out in 2024 is going to have to cast a very large shadow over Tasha's Cauldron of Everything to make it a marketable product for Wizards of the Coast purists. And there's nothing wrong with a Wizards of the Coast purist. But that's where this idea of mine comes in. You have, ideally, 4 options for big name products out there. You have 5th edition as it stands right now, and you could just run 5th edition as it is right now. It would involve you doing a lot of homebrewing and a lot of world building on your own. I think that future campaigns that are released are going to rely on whatever comes next. Option 2 is using one D&D 5.x next revisited, whatever its final name is when it goes to production, and having that be your rule set. Kobold Press is releasing Tales of the Valiant, which is based very heavily on 5e, but is their own brainchild. And I've used Kobold Press products before, and they're all usually very top-notch. The production value is very good, and everything is very balanced upon release. The 4th option is Daggerheart, and that is another game that is based very heavily on the 5th edition that we have now, and is being produced by Matt Mercer, Critical Role, and Darrington Press. Now, if I were to back a horse in this race, I would probably back Daggerheart, because as far as popularity goes, Matt Mercer has become a name that is synonymous with D&D. He should be Wizards of the Coast poster child for how to run a good game of D&D. He draws crowds of millions of people to watch him week after week run games of D&D, and he's a likable person, and he is an ally to so many people, and just does a very good job at what he does. So before I get into my plan, I want to say one thing to every DM out there. Please do not, whether it's your 4th session, your 40th session, or your 400th session, do not get a new book in 2024 and take a hard turn and just change all the rules on your players. That will cause so much chaos at your table that the game will struggle to be fun going forward if there's extreme rule changes. If you're not using any alternate weapon mechanics now and you throw alternate weapon mechanics into your game, it is going to, and that's the only rule that you pick that you're going to put in, but you're doing it in the middle of your campaign, it is going to cause such a massive shift in your campaign that it's going to have people feeling like they're left out, or their players getting overshadowed by, or their characters getting overshadowed by another character. And that's the worst thing that you can have happen, especially in the middle of your campaign. So my plan is to continue my campaign as it is, and it will end when it ends. And when it ends, I will sit down with the Daggerheart book and the Tales of the Valiant book and whatever releases from Wizards of the Coast, whatever name it takes in 2024. I'm going to sit down with all those books, and I will go through and highlight the things that I think are good rules or good changes to 5e. And before session 0 for my next D&D campaign, I will present these rules as these are the options that I want to explore, and kind of get a temperature on how everybody else at the table feels about it. If the alternate weapon rules are something that nobody wants to deal with, then it's not something that we'll have at the table. And ultimately, it should be a conversation that you're having with your players if you're making a shift in between campaigns, moving from one thing to another. I do think that for the most part, a lot of those new rules I thought were great, but as a DM, they didn't really affect me. But I thought that they were interesting changes and more mindful changes to the natural progression of a game like this. And ultimately, what my players and I decide are fair rules for going forward will be the rules that govern my table, whether they're predominantly Daggerheart, predominantly new D&D, predominantly old D&D, or Tales of the Valiant, or whatever the core is. There'll be bits and pieces of everything mixed in, I'm sure. D&D is a game, and it should be fun for everybody at the table. And finding a way to have it be fun for 5, 6, 7 people can be challenging at times. And that's why it's important to have those conversations early on, sometimes even before your campaign starts, as to what people want, what they want out of their game, what they want out of their character, what they want out of the rules. And there's tons of ways to interpret rules and make rules so that they're not as much of a lock and key game, but more of a wave of the hand, and and we can talk about that in later videos. But ultimately, if somebody has a problem, breaking down that problem to the smallest pieces and being able to pick out what the problem actually is, the underlying problem, and fix it, and have that person reintegrated into the group so that the group can be fun again for everyone at the table, is important. And whether it's rules or anything else, finding those things and resolving them quickly is important. I hope you guys like this little summary that I have of my plan going forward. I hope you're able to take some of these ideas and bring them to your table and have it be an open conversation between your DMs and players, so that you can make sure that you're maximizing the fun that you're having at your table. In the past couple weeks, I've been looking into Vampire the Masquerade as another game I'd like to kind of dip my toes into and see if I can get a game going. And it is so much different than D&D that it's almost like a breath of fresh air. It's something I played when I was much younger, but I played it very wrong. But going forward, it is a very political intrigue game, and the rules of the modern world having such an influence on how you can play this game, and it seems like a very exciting breath of fresh air that I want to explore. So if you want to see videos about that, let me know in the comments down below. That's all I've got for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.